Okay, welcome back to First Battle of Kernstown. This is the 7 p.m. turn, 1900. Last turn of the game. It's a dusk turn, so there's a little bit of penalty there, which I'll outline here in a few minutes. But here is the situation at the end of the turn. So this is basically the outline of the two lines. You have the Confederates aligned here and then back over this way, kind of on the edge of Pritchard's Hill. The Union had successfully recaptured the crest of Pritchard's Hill, and is holding that on both sides there. They recaptured some of their artillery. You can see here, and there's another stack of Parrott guns underneath here that have been recovered and back in service again. For the Confederates, they did make it up. They did destroy some more guns and did make some good effort with it. But at the same time, they've had some issues. Namely, Burke's unit actually went brigade combat ineffective. All right, they actually were knocked out. Two of the units collapsed, and they're all stacked within here at this point, kind of holding this flank. Fulkerson had come up and held out as long as he could, but took some pretty nasty fire from both the 29th and 7th Ohio, trying to push them back or trying to hold them back on here and try to destroy more Union artillery. So they actually lost the unit here that collapsed. That was the 37th Virginia of Fulkerson's. That was a large unit. It was an eight strength point. That actually collapsed and routed, actually, I should say, off the map there as well. So that's why they're there. They're barely holding on. There's the 23rd Virginia there right now, and he is only at a 2 strength point, but it's enough to hold the line because Shields, or I shouldn't say Shields, but Kimball and Sullivan did not activate this turn. They only came up with 1 AM this turn and decided to not use them this turn and actually get the 3 victory points for not moving. They were able to try to rally a few things, but that failed. And the Union actually has bigger problems because actually 2 of their brigades are BCE'd, Sullivan's and Kimball's here, who ultimately default to Carroll. They're both BCE, so there's 10 points. And another 5 points because now with 2 brigades out of 3 being BCE'd, that actually makes the division combat ineffective, and they will be out as well. So that actually gives them another 5 points for victory condition. So it's pretty rough state for them. Also, the Confederates were able to knock out a couple more guns of some of the batteries, so that picked up a couple more victory points. We'll take a look at victory points here in just a minute, but I just wanted to show you where everything stood at the end of the game. So we have Ashby over here. He is basically just holding the line against the Union, which you can see just above, just out of frame within there. And they're basically just watching each other. No attempt to go after each other, just for the loss of victory points over on that side. Over here, Garnett had pushed a little bit and pushed back the 39th Illinois right here, back up to this wall, capturing Kernstown effectively, and pushing them back, and actually being one of the key elements to making Sullivan's brigade BCE'd as well. So this is where it stands here at the end of the game. Now, as I said, so where does this leave us with all of the victory points? Well, let's take a look. Let's zoom in on the victory points as well as some of the losses that both sides have had. So looking at the Union, here was the casualty boxes as well as the victory points. You can see a lot of Union units were destroyed over here. We've got two units of Carroll's and 1 unit of Sullivan's were routed. And then we've got 2 units of Carroll again, plus all of this artillery. You can see here there's a lot of artillery. There is 8 points there lost in artillery, plus another 1 taken off one of the units that's still on the board over there. So that wound up being 9 points for the Confederates with that. Plus the BCs and everything else made it tough. So ultimately, the Union wound up with 19 victory points, 10, 9, 19 over here. And then for the Confederates, if we zoom across, we can see they had 2 routed units, one from Garnett and one from Fulkerson, which I mentioned just prior. But with all their victory points, they wound up with 30 victory points. That's what I've got marked over here. 30 victory points for the win. So they actually got the win. The actual degree of win, I think that's a substantial win. If I just take a quick look back here, yes, it's going to be a tactical victory for the Confederates and the game. So, how did I like this? How did this actually play out? Let's take a look at that, and let's go back to the board to show you that. So back at the board, taking a look at my final thoughts on the scenario. I kind of like this scenario. It was an interesting one because of the victory conditions. The Union getting victory conditions for basically not moving or not taking activations during the turns, which is interesting because it's a little bit of a puzzle when to get the Union moving, when to not get them moving. As well as the Confederate side, you have the opposite effect there, is how do you goad the Union into moving? How do I get them to move, to put them in a position that they've got to move? Because that's the only way they're going to move. So with the Confederates, I had to be a little bit more nimble with Jackson's units, a little bit more dynamic with them as much as possible. I had to be aggressive with them too, to push them in there, and that's why the casualty rate is up higher with them, particularly Burks and Fulkerson taking a lot of hits. Garnett took a lot of hits too in the beginning as well, so it wound up being an issue. Union does have the strength on this, so they will have good firepower, and they can defend themselves if attacked. So it's going to be a tough one for the Confederates to kind of puzzle out, to figure out what's going to be the best way. Like I said, Union has a lot of 10s, 12s, 8s, 9s, high numbers here, where the Confederates are stuck back with 4s, 6s. They do have some 9s, a couple of them, but they do have the better cohesion. Their cohesion 7s and 8s, where the Union is 6s and 7s. So that does give a slight advantage to them as well. Cavalry, I think, is a little bit more nimble under Ashby, with the special rules make them few little extras. Although Union cavalry did respond well with changing their orders to push Ashby back on there, and there was a few casualty points for the Confederates over there as well. So it is a tough scenario. One thing that I did see about it, I found myself, thinking about going for the cavalry, going for the guns, up here on Pritchard's Hill. And that's probably a good thing because that was part of the battle historically. One part that does get left out is the battle over on this side over here, just off to the camera to the left, for Sandy Ridge. Had virtually no units over there at all. It just wasn't a factor because there was just no victory points for this. There was no special rules for this. There was nothing to keep them over there. And historically, if I slide the camera over, this area is an important point because this area here on Sandy Ridge is actually higher than Pritchard's Hill. So you get some artillery on there, and you'll be able to bombard them and potentially force them off the hill. So there's no real need to do that. It was really came down to more of attacking the hill, charging up the hill and attacking the guns, rather than the full maneuver that you had over here for Pritchard's Hill, and ultimately the stone wall up here in that hex. So in those hexes. So that's the only thing that kind of threw me. It was a little ahistorical in terms of how the battle went and how the battle developed across here as well. But I did enjoy it. You know, it is classic Great Battles of American Civil War, and you know, once the units engaged, it become very, very heavy duty fighting, and you do need to think about how much you want to charge in and just kind of the effects, because the losses, although are small, they can be cascading in the Great Battles of the American Civil War. So you can have units lose strength points and cohesion quickly and find yourself being collapsed, routed, even eliminated in one fall swoop. So good one here. So this is starting out my series for the 1862 campaign with the first Kernstown. We'll move on to the next one, which will be Winchester. Yeah, the Winchester, first Winchester scenarios, and then down along Cross Keys and the other ones there from the expansions there too, to hopefully get through all of these 1862 campaigns and make that part of my playlist here on YouTube. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Wrapping this one up. Thank you for watching. If you haven't seen the other ones, go back and take a look at them. All good stuff within there. Please like us, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.